All right, this video is over direct variation, chapter 1, lesson 9. And the first section is asking you to look at each table and determine if it is a direct variation. If it is a direct variation, it's asking you to say what the constant of proportionality is. So, let's talk about direct variation for a minute. Direct variation deals with a specific equation, and that is y equals kx. K represents the constant of proportionality, the slope, the rate of change. All of these vocabulary words represent the same thing. It just depends on the situation you're talking about. You would use a different vocabulary word. This is an example of a direct variation equation. I have y equals a number times x. 12 happens to be the number in this case. It doesn't have anything to do with today's assignment. It's just an example of what a direct variation equation looks like. So you could place any number in the place of k. You could use a fraction, you could use a decimal, you could use a whole number, as long as you don't have anything behind it. So if this said y equals 12x minus 7, or y equals 12x plus 2, then that's not a direct variation. So how do we figure out if this is a direct variation based on what we already know? And what we already know is that the slope formula that I've given you to use is y divided by x. So looking at number 1, I've got 25, 30, 35, 40 in my x values, and 100, 120, 140, and 160 in my y values. So I'm going to do y divided by x for each of these units. So 100 divided by 25 is 4, 120 divided by 30 is 4, 140 divided by 35 is 4, and 160 divided by 40 is 4. Because they're all the same, I have a direct variation, and the same unit rate that I have down here would be my constant of proportionality. So for number 1, you would say yes, it is a direct variation, and the constant of proportionality is 4. I don't care if you abbreviate for these, it makes it shorter and easier to read. Down here on the graphs, it's asking you to find the slope. It uses the term constant of proportionality, but it means the same thing as slope. And slope is rise over run, or y over x. So we're going to start with this point right here, which is coordinate 1, 4. And I've got to go all the way up to this coordinate, which is 2, 8. So I'm going to count how many squares did I go up until I was even with this point. I go up 1, 2 squares, and each square is counting by 2. Look at 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. So if I go up 2, 4, my numerator, my y value is 4. Now I'm going to count how many squares I go over to this point, and I go over 1, 2 squares. Each square going along the x-axis is worth half a unit. So if I go over a half and then go over another half, I have 1 whole. So 4 over 1 is your slope, or you could simplify it to just 4. That is our video for today. Once again, if you have any questions, you better come see me.